Welcome to Zoe Stories. Doctor gave me an ultimatum: gender surgery or else. The first time I truly looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the person staring back. Not entirely, anyway. My reflection was familiar, yet strange. A man I knew, yet something about the way I held myself, the subtle arch of my eyebrows, the curve of my jawline under the harsh bathroom light, made me pause. My name is Adrian, and for as long as I can remember, I've walked the tightrope between two identities, one that I show to the world, and another I hide away in the shadows of my apartment. By day, I'm an ordinary office worker, the kind of man whose life looks stable, predictable, and utterly normal. People assume I have everything under control: steady job, dependable demeanor, a girlfriend who adores me. But beneath that veneer, I'm constantly wrestling with a secret that I fear would shatter my life if it ever came to light. I cross-dress. Not just occasionally, like some thrill-seekers or curious experimenters. For me, it's more than a hobby. It's a necessity, a form of self-expression that allows me to explore sides of myself that I can't in my day-to-day life. It's the only time I feel truly alive, truly free. Yet, freedom comes at a cost. My apartment, modest yet cozy, serves as both sanctuary and stage. Hidden beneath the floorboards are boxes filled with clothes I could never wear in public: silken blouses, tight skirts, delicate lace lingerie, high heels that click against the wooden floors in the quiet of the night. Each item is meticulously organized, as if their placement alone can protect me from being discovered. My makeup kit, a rainbow of possibilities, sits neatly on the dresser. I've become a master of disguise in my own home, transforming into a woman who is confident, beautiful, and entirely different from the man who clocks in at 9 and leaves at 5. And then there's Isabella, my girlfriend, my anchor, my torment. She doesn't know about my secret, not fully. She's captivating in a way that makes my heart race and my mind spin. Isabella has this effortless grace, an aura that draws people in, and I've always feared losing her if she ever discovered the truth. Her laugh, the tilt of her head when she's amused, the way she absent-mindedly twirls her hair, all of it makes me feel both exhilarated and terrified. I love her, but I'm afraid that the version of myself she knows, the man version, would be incompatible with the part of me that longs to embrace femininity. The day that changed everything started innocuously. I had been feeling off for weeks, a lingering fatigue I couldn't shake, a heaviness in my chest every time I tried to ignore my secret. When Isabella encouraged me to see a doctor for a routine checkup, I agreed reluctantly. That appointment began like any other: the sterile white walls of the clinic, the faint antiseptic smell, and the nervous shuffle of patients in the waiting area. But nothing could have prepared me for Dr. Harlan's words. "Adrian," he said, his tone precise, almost clinical, "we need to discuss your condition. The results are clear, and the choices are limited." Limited. The word echoed in my mind like a hammer. My pulse quickened as I tried to process what he was saying. And then it hit me, the ultimatum.
Surgery.
Gender surgery. Or else. The or else was implied but unmistakable. Ignore it and my life, my health, could spiral out of control. Suddenly, my carefully constructed world, where I could indulge in secret transformations within the safety of my home, felt fragile, impermanent. The thought of making a permanent decision, of altering my body in a way I had never fully considered, sent shivers down my spine. Walking home afterward, I was haunted by images of the woman I could become, the version of me I had only glimpsed in mirrors late at night, illuminated by vanity lights. There was excitement, of course. The thrill of transformation, of fully embracing my feminine self, surged through me. But there was fear, too, the fear of judgment, of rejection, of losing Isabella, of facing a society that might never understand. Back in my apartment, I shut the door, and the familiar comfort of my hidden world greeted me. Boxes of clothes, the scent of perfume lingering in the air, my carefully arranged heels. Everything seemed to whisper that I was safe here, that here I could be anyone I wanted. And so I began. The first tentative steps toward transformation. I ran a brush through my hair, selecting a wig with soft waves, the color a perfect blend of chestnut and auburn that caught the light just right. My hands shook slightly as I opened a drawer and chose an outfit, feeling the fabric between my fingers, imagining how it would cling, how it would make me feel alive. Each stroke of foundation, each sweep of eyeliner, brought a rush of exhilaration. I was no longer Adrian, the man who worked in an office and lived a life half hidden. I was Adriana, bold and beautiful, a persona that filled the corners of my apartment with new light. Standing in front of the mirror, adjusting the hem of my skirt, I could hardly believe how real it felt. How right. But with that realization came the nagging tension, the clock ticking toward the moment Isabella might walk through the door, the unspoken rules of my secret life, the precarious balance between desire and danger. And so my journey began. Not just a journey of appearance, but of identity, of fear and excitement entwined in a delicate dance. Little did I know that the ultimatum from Dr. Harlan was just the beginning, that my life would soon become a high-stakes game where every choice, every slip, every hidden secret could have consequences I had never imagined. As night fell, I stood in the quiet of my apartment, heart racing, heels clicking softly against the wooden floor, and I realized the line between who I was and who I wanted to be had never been thinner. And crossing it would change everything. The night had settled quietly over the city, but inside my apartment, every sound felt amplified. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the distant wail of a siren, the faint creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. I stood before the full-length mirror, taking in the reflection of the man who was about to disappear beneath layers of silk, lace, and makeup. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and rose, perfume I had borrowed from Isabella's collection weeks ago, tucked away carefully so that its scent could accompany my transformation. I took a deep breath. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of anticipation and fear. I had done this many times before, but tonight felt different. Dr. Harlan's words echoed in my mind, reminding me of the ultimatum: surgery or else. The "or else" was like a shadow behind every brushstroke, every slip of fabric. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the box containing the first outfit I had chosen for tonight, a soft, blush-colored dress with delicate lace along the sleeves. The fabric felt like a whisper against my fingertips, smooth and inviting. I held it up to my chest, imagining the way it would hug my body, how I would feel wearing it fully for the first time tonight. There was a thrill in anticipation, the kind that made every nerve ending feel alive. But there was also hesitation. What if someone walked in unexpectedly? What if Isabella called me in the middle of this moment, her voice snapping through the apartment and shattering the fragile world I had created? I shook my head to clear the thoughts, reminding myself that this was my sanctuary. Here I was free. Here, I could explore the side of me that most of the world would never see. I began with the wig. The soft waves of chestnut and auburn shimmered in the dim light as I adjusted it over my head. I clipped it into place, smoothing each strand carefully. The sensation of hair brushing against my shoulders was strangely comforting, like a familiar embrace. My reflection shifted slightly, a hint of a woman beginning to emerge from behind the mask of Adrian. I felt a small surge of confidence, tempered by anxiety. This was only the beginning, yet the stakes had never felt higher. Next came the makeup. Foundation first, applied with gentle precision, evening out the contours of my face. I focused on every detail, the bridge of my nose, the curve of my cheekbones, the soft shadowing that would create the illusion of a more delicate jawline. Blush added warmth to my cheeks, eyeliner defined my eyes, and mascara lengthened my lashes to a point where they felt like extensions of my emotions. Each step drew me further into the transformation, and each stroke carried with it a wave of vulnerability. I was exposed, yet hidden, fragile, yet powerful. As I applied lipstick, the final touch, I paused to study the reflection that now looked unmistakably feminine. My pulse quickened. Seeing myself like this, fully transformed, sent a thrill through me unlike anything I had experienced before. The reflection stared back with wide, curious eyes that seemed to hold secrets even I had yet to uncover. I ran my fingers along my jaw and down my neck, feeling the contours of my face, my body, my posture. I felt more alive in this moment than I had in weeks, yet a part of me remained tethered to fear, the fear that this secret life could unravel at any moment. The heels came next, clicking sharply against the wooden floor as I adjusted my posture, learning again the subtle shift in balance they demanded. I wobbled slightly at first, then found a rhythm, each step reinforcing the persona that now inhabited my body. Standing in front of the mirror fully dressed, I felt a strange duality. Adrian was still there, but Adriana had emerged, bold and undeniable. And then came the first challenge. My phone buzzed on the dresser. A message from Isabella. "Hey, just leaving work a little early. Can't wait to see you." My chest tightened. She could be home any minute. Every second now felt amplified, every shadow a potential threat. My sanctuary was suddenly a trap, the quiet apartment turning into a stage where I could be discovered at any moment. I had to act fast. I carefully arranged the wig, smoothed my dress, and made sure every detail was in place. I reminded myself to breathe. Slow, deliberate breaths. Focus. Control. I tiptoed to the living room, adjusting my dress with nervous precision, feeling the thrill of danger alongside the excitement of transformation. The apartment felt smaller, more intimate, every creak of the floorboards magnified in my ears. My mind raced with scenarios. What if Isabella walked in and found me like this? What would she think? Would she be angry, amused, accepting, or judgmental? The unknown loomed large, making the adrenaline surge through my veins. Then I noticed something else, my reflection in the window, faint but undeniable. Outside, the city lights blurred into streaks, painting my apartment with an eerie glow. I stared at the reflection, seeing two versions of myself simultaneously, the man who existed in the light of day and the woman who thrived in secrecy. It was intoxicating, yet terrifying. I realized in that moment that I wasn't just experimenting with clothes or makeup. I was confronting my identity, exploring the very essence of who I wanted to be, and the stakes of discovery made every heartbeat sharper. For the first time that evening, I allowed myself a small, private smile. The thrill of the secret, the danger of being caught, the beauty of the transformation, it all converged in a heady mix that made my heart race. I was on the precipice of something larger than myself, a journey that would challenge every part of my life, every relationship I held dear, and every belief I had about who I was. And in that quiet apartment, standing on the edge of discovery and transformation, I realized one thing. The night had only just begun. The apartment was silent, but silence had a strange way of amplifying everything. The faint tick of the clock, the soft hum of the air conditioner, the distant sounds of the city outside. I stayed in front of the mirror a moment longer, adjusting the hem of my dress and the angle of my wig. My reflection had become a stranger, yet also an intimate companion, the woman I had always wanted to be, but had never dared to fully inhabit in the outside world. I took a slow step back, feeling the delicate sway of the fabric with each movement. High heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor, echoing in the empty apartment. I realized how much control this secret gave me, how exhilarating it felt to step into someone else's skin without anyone else knowing. Yet the thought of Isabella coming home early, the little note she had sent, hung over me like a shadow. Every second was a countdown, a test of my nerve and skill. I moved to the living room and crouched slightly, adjusting the positioning of a scarf that had slipped from my shoulder. I felt exposed in ways I hadn't anticipated. The thrill of the heels, the soft brush of the dress against my skin, the weight of the wig pulling slightly on my scalp, all of it heightened my senses. But it wasn't just physical. Emotionally, I was vibrating with tension. Each moment of movement reminded me that I was playing a dangerous game. I thought about the first time I had discovered cross-dressing. It was an accident at first, slipping into one of Isabella's old dresses to escape a long, stressful day. But the feeling had been intoxicating, a sudden revelation of who I could be when the world wasn't watching. Since then, it had become a secret ritual, a space where I could explore the femininity that felt like it had always been a part of me. And tonight, with Dr. Harlan's ultimatum fresh in my mind, the stakes felt higher than ever. This wasn't just about indulgence anymore, it was a confrontation with identity, with choices that might change my life forever. I walked slowly to the dresser, my reflection in the mirror following me like a silent witness. I picked up a pair of earrings, small and understated, but perfect for the look I was building. Sliding them onto my ears, I noticed the subtle change in my posture. Adriana, the persona I had created, stood taller, more assured. There was a magnetic pull in the way I moved, a confidence that surprised me. And yet, beneath it all, fear simmered. The fear that Isabella might arrive at any moment, that a knock on the door could unravel everything.
My phone buzzed again.
Another message from Isabella. Almost home. Can you wait for me in the living room? I have something to show you. My stomach twisted. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs. She was coming, and she would see me. Not the man she knew me, but Adriana, the secret I had hidden so carefully for months. I felt the weight of panic pressing down, but alongside it, a strange exhilaration. This was the ultimate test, a moment where my two worlds were about to collide. I hurried to straighten the skirt, smoothing the fabric, and then glanced around the apartment. Every box of clothing, every carefully placed accessory suddenly seemed like evidence of a crime. Could I hide it all before she saw? Could I maintain composure while my heart raced like it would burst? I took a deep breath, counting silently to 10, trying to steady my shaking hands. Then came the reflection in the window again. Outside, the city lights blurred, and in the glass, I saw the split image, Adrian and Adriana, man and woman, existing simultaneously. I touched my lips, feeling the smoothness of the lipstick, tracing the curve of my cheek with trembling fingers. The woman staring back at me seemed to hold a challenge, daring me to embrace this identity fully, even as the danger of discovery loomed large. Time seemed to stretch and warp. The seconds dragged, each heartbeat loud and insistent. I paced carefully across the living room, trying to convince myself that I could handle this. I imagined Isabella stepping inside, her eyes widening in shock or amusement, and felt a rush of adrenaline. My mind raced with possible scenarios. Would she laugh? Would she leave in disgust? Would she understand? Or would my secret shatter everything between us? I thought of my parents, too, how they would react if they ever knew. The shame, the embarrassment, the possibility of judgment. The world outside my apartment felt like a distant, hostile place compared to the intimate, fragile bubble of safety I had created here. And yet, that bubble was fragile. Every step I took, every careful adjustment of my dress and wig, was a reminder of how easily it could be burst. I allowed myself one last glance in the mirror, savoring the image of Adriana, strong, alluring, and undeniably alive. And then I heard it, the faint click of keys in the lock. My body froze. Every muscle tensed. The door was opening. Isabella was here. In that instant, fear and exhilaration collided, creating a cocktail of emotion that left me breathless. Could I maintain composure? Could I keep the secret intact for even a few more seconds? Every second now counted. Every gesture, every movement could betray me. The first test had begun. The collision of worlds, Adrian and Adriana, secret and reality, was unavoidable. And as the door swung open, I braced myself, ready to face the consequences of living two lives in one fragile body. The moment the door clicked shut behind Isabella, the apartment seemed to shrink. My chest tightened, the air thick with anticipation. I froze mid-step, every nerve screaming. She was home early unannounced, and yet I wasn't ready, not really. Not as Adriana. Not for her eyes to see the side of me I had only allowed in private, in the shadows. "Hey, you're still here?" Isabella's voice called softly from the hallway. Her footsteps were deliberate, slow, teasing maybe, but every step sounded magnified in my ears. My mind raced. Could I speak? Could I move? The dress clung to my skin, the lace at my wrists brushing ever so slightly. My wig felt heavier than usual, a crown of vulnerability atop my head. I was exposed in ways I hadn't imagined, my secret self suddenly dangerously tangible. I swallowed hard, forcing a casual smile that didn't reach my eyes. Yeah, just relaxing. My voice betrayed me, slightly higher than normal, tighter than usual. That small slip, my pulse spiked, was proof of how fragile this disguise really was. I could hear Isabella approaching, her footsteps pausing outside the living room. I felt the instant pressure of being watched, of her presence turning my sanctuary into a stage. I adjusted the hem of my dress, smoothing out a wrinkle that wasn't really there. Every tiny detail mattered now. Every flaw could reveal me. As she stepped into the room, I forced my hands to my sides. Isabella's eyes scanned the space, curious, playful, but then she froze slightly. The air between us became electric, thick with unsaid words. My heart pounded in my chest, loud enough, I felt, for her to hear. She tilted her head slightly, a question hanging unspoken. "You look different," she said softly, almost testing the waters. My stomach lurched. Was that surprise, amusement, judgment? Or was it excitement? I couldn't tell. I swallowed hard and tried to smile more confidently, letting my fingers brush against the lace sleeve, an unconscious gesture of nervousness. "I just thought I'd try something new," I said, my voice slightly trembling. A lie, but it felt like truth in the moment. Both of us were stepping into uncharted territory. Her gaze lingered on me, sweeping from the heels to the wig, the subtle curve of my cheek under the makeup. My reflection in the mirror caught her eyes, and I felt both pride and terror. Pride in the woman I had created, terror at the risk of being discovered. There was a brief silence, a pause that stretched longer than it should have. Isabella's lips curved into a slow smile, mischievous, almost knowing. New look, huh?" she murmured, stepping closer, her fingers lightly brushing a strand of hair that had slipped from my wig. Every touch sent a shockwave through me. The thrill, the vulnerability, it was overwhelming. I wanted to recoil, to retreat into the safety of Adrian, but part of me wanted to melt into her gaze, to be seen fully as Adriana. The room felt smaller with every passing second, the walls closing in as my dual identity became painfully real. I could feel the fabric of the dress against my skin, the subtle swish of the lace, the delicate high heels pressing into my arches. My body had become a map of sensation, every movement heightened, every glance magnified. And Isabella was there, the unknowing observer, tipping the scale between danger and desire. I tried to regain control. "I just wanted to experiment," I said, forcing a casual shrug. But the word sounded hollow even to me. Experimentation had always been my cover story, my shield against judgment, but now it seemed flimsy, inadequate. This was no longer a private indulgence, it was a collision of worlds. Isabella leaned against the wall, watching me, curiosity glinting in her eyes. "Well, I like it. You look different. But in a good way," she added quickly, as if sensing my unease. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered by tension. She liked it, yes, but did she understand?
Could she?
I nodded, trying to smile, and felt a pang of longing. I wanted to tell her everything, to strip away the secrecy and step fully into my truth. But fear held me back. The fear of rejection, the fear of losing her, the fear of unraveling the delicate balance of our relationship. And then, a sound from the hallway, a soft, deliberate knock. My heart leapt into my throat. Not Isabella. Someone else. Someone unexpected. The thrill of danger turned electric, sharp. Who could it be at this hour? My mind raced. A neighbor? A delivery? Or worse, someone who could expose me? I glanced at the mirror again, seeing Adriana's reflection staring back with wide, alert eyes. My secret self and my fear-stricken self merged in that gaze. I moved carefully toward the door, every click of my heels echoing like a warning. The knock came again, more insistent this time, and my pulse raced. "Who is it?" Isabella's voice called behind me. My hands shook slightly as I fumbled with the doorknob. I didn't want to answer, yet I couldn't ignore it. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door just a crack. A shadowed figure stood outside, just beyond the light of the hallway. I couldn't see the face clearly, and the ambiguity made my stomach churn. "Delivery," a voice called. Relief? Slightly, but the tension didn't dissipate. I signed for the package quickly, hands trembling as I retreated inside, closing the door behind me with a soft click that felt louder than ever. Isabella watched silently, a teasing smirk on her lips. "You look tense," she said, tilting her head. I forced a laugh, heart still hammering. "Just trying to adjust to the heels," I replied, brushing a nervous curl behind my ear. But inside, I was vibrating with the realization. The night had only begun. My secret was fragile, my identity on display, and the danger of exposure loomed ever closer. Each step I took in this world of silk, lace, and makeup was a risk, yet it was a risk I couldn't resist. I was caught between fear and desire, Adrian and Adriana, secrecy and revelation, and the night promised that this delicate balance would be tested further. I moved back to the mirror once more, standing fully in the reflection of Adriana. Her eyes stared back with challenge and courage. The heels, the dress, the wig, the makeup, all of it was more than clothing or art. It was armor and vulnerability, thrill and terror, freedom and imprisonment. And as Isabella moved closer, unaware of the fragility beneath the surface, I realized that the night would not just reveal me, it would define me. The apartment felt like it was closing in around me. Every tick of the clock, every creak of the floorboards, every soft shuffle of Isabella's movements made my heart race uncontrollably. Adriana and Adrian existed in the same space now, but the balance between them felt dangerously fragile. My heels pressed sharply into my arches, the lace brushing against my skin, and the wig on my head seemed heavier with each second. I could feel every inch of my transformation, every sensation amplified by fear and exhilaration. Isabella had settled onto the couch, scrolling casually through her phone, but I could feel her eyes on me nonetheless. Her presence was magnetic, yet threatening, like the sun warming the skin while also burning it. I shifted my weight, trying to appear casual, but my movements felt exaggerated, unsteady. Each step was a reminder of the dual life I was living, a life that could unravel with the slightest misstep. I decided to retreat to the bedroom, thinking I could regain composure and perhaps adjust the outfit one last time. As I passed the mirror in the hallway, I paused. The reflection was almost surreal. Adriana's eyes stared back at me, wide, alert, and defiant. I ran a trembling hand along the curve of my jaw, feeling the delicate contours softened by makeup. My chest rose and fell rapidly as I tried to steady my breathing. The thrill of being seen, the terror of exposure, coursed through me like electricity. In the bedroom, I crouched beside the wardrobe, adjusting my skirt and smoothing the wig. I noticed small imperfections, stray hairs, a tiny smudge of lipstick, and my anxiety spiked. Perfection mattered in this moment. It always did. I ran my fingers along the hem of the dress, feeling the fabric slide smoothly over my skin, and tried to imagine the night stretching out peacefully, without incident. But peace was a distant dream. Every sound outside the bedroom, the faint hum of traffic, the occasional bark of a dog, the click of Isabella's heels on the hardwood floor, reminded me that danger was close, unavoidable. I thought about Dr. Harlan's ultimatum again, and the weight of it pressed down on me. Surgery or else. The words had set everything in motion, making my secret life feel simultaneously trivial and vital. In that moment, Adriana wasn't just a persona. She was a lifeline, a way to explore and understand myself before making a permanent decision. And yet, every step further into this identity carried risk. Suddenly, Isabella's voice broke through my thoughts. Adriana, she said hesitantly, tilting her head, curiosity and amusement in her tone. My stomach lurched. She had noticed something, even if she didn't fully understand it. I turned slowly, letting her see me fully, every detail of the transformation, and held my breath. She stood, moving closer, eyes scanning every inch of me. "Wow, you really went all out," she murmured, a hint of awe in her voice. Relief surged, but it was fleeting. The fear of the unknown, the unpredictability of her reaction, kept my body tense. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. I wanted to try something different, I said, voice soft, almost fragile. Just a little experiment. A lie, yes, but it felt partially true. Experimentation had always been my cover, a way to explore without revealing the depth of my desires. Isabella smiled slowly, tilting her head. "Well, it suits you. Really, it does." She stepped closer, her fingers brushing lightly against my shoulder. I felt a shiver run through me, the touch of someone I loved, seeing me as something entirely new, yet not entirely foreign. The thrill of approval mixed with fear like a potent cocktail, making it impossible to think clearly. Then, the unexpected happened. A loud knock echoed through the apartment, startling both of us. My heart nearly stopped. Not Isabella, someone else. Panic surged as I imagined all the worst scenarios. Who could it be now? My thoughts raced as I realized the fragile illusion of control had been shattered. I glanced at Isabella, whose expression had shifted slightly, concern, curiosity, amusement mingling in her eyes. I wanted to hide, to retreat, but there was no time. Every second counted. I tiptoed toward the door, my heels clicking sharply against the floor, and opened it just a crack. A shadowed figure stood there, too close for comfort, too familiar to ignore. My stomach churned. A neighbor? A friend of Isabella's? Or worse, a stranger who could expose me? The package I had just signed for was forgotten, the tension eclipsing all else. I closed the door quickly, heart racing, and leaned against it for a moment, trying to steady myself. Isabella was behind me, curiosity evident but restrained. "Who is it?" she asked softly. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. "Just a delivery," I said, words clipped, betraying none of the panic inside me. But inside, I was trembling. The night had escalated faster than I could have anticipated. The thrill of transformation, the beauty of the persona I had crafted, was now interwoven with danger, fear, and the constant pressure of potential discovery. Every glance, every movement, every heartbeat felt heightened. I returned to the mirror, staring at Adriana's reflection once more. Her eyes held courage, defiance, and something I hadn't fully realized until this moment. She was alive, vibrant, and unstoppable, even in the face of uncertainty. And yet, I knew that the night was far from over. The next moments, the choices I made, could redefine everything. My identity, my relationship with Isabella, and the fragile world I had built in secret. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and whispered softly, almost to myself, "This is just the beginning." The apartment was quiet again, but the silence was deceptive. Every shadow seemed alive, every corner a potential threat. I stood in the middle of the living room, my reflection in the window catching the soft glow of city lights. Adriana stared back at me, her posture confident, her eyes bold, but inside, my heart raced like a drum. The thrill of the transformation had reached a fever pitch, but so had the fear. Isabella sat on the couch, casually scrolling through her phone, yet I could feel her presence, like a heat pressing against my back. Her attention shifted between me and the room, subtle but unnerving. I adjusted the wig again, smoothing a stray curl that threatened to fall across my face. My hands shook slightly, betraying the calm I tried to project. Every movement had to be perfect. Every detail could betray the secret I had nurtured for months. I thought about the knock earlier, the shadowed figure at the door, and realized my sanctuary was no longer guaranteed. Every sound outside, every unexpected vibration in the apartment, set my nerves on edge. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor as I paced slowly, trying to channel the tension into composure. The dress clung to me, swaying gently with each step, a constant reminder of the vulnerability beneath the surface. I reached for my makeup kit on the dresser, as if touching it could somehow anchor me. Carefully, I touched the lipstick, the eyeshadow, the blush, feeling the familiar textures, the comforting scent of my secret world. Transformation wasn't just about appearance, it was ritual, it was identity, it was a lifeline. I pressed the brush to my skin, adjusting subtle details, and felt a surge of power and fear in equal measure. Adriana was alive, and the world outside could not yet touch her. But for how long? Suddenly, a soft sound came from the hallway. My pulse leapt. Isabella froze as well, her eyes narrowing alert. The sound was faint but deliberate, a shuffle, a click, a whisper of movement. I realized immediately. Someone else had entered the apartment. My stomach churned. My secret life, my carefully controlled world, was under threat. I crouched slightly, adjusting my dress and heels, trying to appear casual. Every second now was a test, a tightrope walk between exposure and survival. The fear of being caught pressed down on me like a physical weight, yet beneath it all, a strange exhilaration coursed through my veins. I was alive in a way I had never been before, but the stakes had never felt higher. Isabella's voice broke through my thoughts, soft but commanding. Adriana, are you hiding something? Her tone was playful but probing, and it cut through me like a knife. I froze, realizing that the delicate balance I had maintained was fracturing. The thrill of transformation, the pleasure of secrecy, collided with the stark reality of potential discovery. I forced a laugh, brushing a hand through the wig. I just wanted to try a different look, I said, voice trembling but controlled. The lie felt thin, fragile, but it had to hold. Isabella's gaze lingered, sharp and curious, and I felt my entire body tense. Every instinct screamed that this was a turning point. One wrong move, one slip of composure, and the carefully constructed world of my dual identity could shatter completely. Then came a sudden, sharp knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat. Not Isabella, someone else. Panic surged as I imagined all the possibilities. A neighbor, a friend, a stranger, someone who could expose me in an instant. I glanced at Isabella, who now looked concerned, and my mind raced with options. I couldn't let anyone see me like this, not yet. I moved toward the door cautiously, each step calculated, every click of my heels echoing like a warning. My reflection caught in the hallway mirror, and I saw Adriana staring back, defiant, alive, yet trembling with fear. I reached the door, hand hovering over the knob, every nerve ending on high alert. The knock came again, insistent this time. I swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and opened the door just a crack. A shadowed figure stood outside, indistinct in the dim light. My pulse raced, my body shook, and for a moment, I felt entirely exposed. The reality of being caught, of my secret unraveling, pressed down on me like a lead weight. Isabella moved beside me, her presence both comforting and terrifying. "Who is it?" she asked softly, curiosity and concern mingling in her tone. I shook my head, forcing a calm laugh. "Just someone delivering a package," I said, keeping my voice steady. Inside, my heart was pounding, my identity teetering on the edge of revelation. As I closed the door and returned to the living room, I realized the truth. My secret life, my dual identity, was more fragile than I had ever admitted. Every step I took, every moment I lingered as Adriana, carried risk. And yet, the exhilaration, the beauty of transformation, the raw thrill of living between two worlds, was irresistible. Standing before the mirror one last time, I traced the curves of my jaw, the sweep of the wig, the sway of the dress, and whispered softly, almost to myself, "This is only the beginning." The night stretched ahead, full of possibility, danger, and revelation. My secret had never felt so real, so alive, so dangerously close to being discovered. The apartment felt like a trap. Every shadow, every whisper of sound became a potential threat. I stood frozen, the weight of the dress pressing against my skin, heels digging into my arches, wig slightly askew, a fragile disguise ready to collapse. Isabella's gaze was unwavering, her curiosity sharpened into something almost predatory. She wasn't just observing anymore, she was actively reading me, testing my composure. Then it happened, a soft, deliberate cough from the hallway. My blood ran cold. Not Isabella, not me, someone else. My pulse hammered in my ears. My carefully controlled duality, the delicate balance of Adrian and Adriana, was under immediate threat. I froze mid-step, trying to maintain posture, trying to project calm while my heart threatened to burst. Isabella tilted her head, sensing my tension. "You're nervous," she murmured, voice soft but sharp. My throat tightened. How could I explain the truth without revealing everything? I managed a laugh, nervous and brittle. "Just not used to heels this high," I said, the lie tasting sour on my tongue. The sound of footsteps approached, deliberate, measured, coming closer. My mind raced. Could I retreat to the bedroom? Could I hide, change back into Adrian, and salvage my secret? Each option felt impossible. The figure outside could arrive at any moment, and the risk of exposure grew with every heartbeat. I glanced at the mirror across the room. Adriana stared back at me, her eyes wide, alert, defiant. I traced the line of my jaw with trembling fingers, feeling the softness that makeup had created, the unfamiliar contours that made me both exhilarated and terrified. This was no longer a private indulgence. This was high stakes, and the slightest misstep could unravel everything. A knock at the door, a sharp, insistent rapping, made me jump. My heart lurched violently. Isabella leaned slightly forward, curiosity now mixed with concern. "Who is it?" she asked softly. I swallowed hard, fighting the panic threatening to rise in my chest. "Delivery again," I murmured, keeping my voice as steady as possible. The door opened slightly, and a shadowed figure slipped into the apartment before I could react fully. The stranger's presence filled the room with an immediate, suffocating tension. I felt the fragile barrier between my two identities shatter. Every nerve ending screamed. Isabella stepped back slightly, uncertainty flickering across her face. "Wait, what's going on?" Her voice wavered between suspicion and alarm. I could barely breathe, caught between two worlds, Adrian, the man she knew, and Adriana, the persona that had come alive under her gaze. The stranger moved closer, and I could finally see the face in the dim light. It was someone familiar, someone I had never expected to see here tonight. My mind froze. Recognition and fear collided violently.
How had they found me?
How much had they seen? Every instinct screamed to retreat, to hide, but there was no time. I felt a surge of adrenaline, sharp and intoxicating. My fingers fumbled with the wig, adjusting it as if that small act could restore some semblance of control. My heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor, each step measured, each motion deliberate. I was both predator and prey, trapped in a dangerous dance where every gesture could betray me. Isabella's eyes scanned me from head to toe. Her expression shifted from confusion to understanding, then to something almost unreadable. "Adriana," she whispered, voice low, teasing, incredulous. My stomach dropped. She knew. She could see it now, and the reality of exposure hit me like a physical blow. The stranger took another step forward, and I realized the scope of the danger. My secret life, my identity, my carefully nurtured persona, all of it hung by a thread. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. I was exposed, vulnerable, and powerless to prevent the collision of worlds that was coming. I tried to steady myself, to breathe, to regain composure. Adriana needed to stand, to confront the threat with confidence, but fear gripped me like iron. My reflection in the mirror caught my gaze, and for a fleeting second, I saw both Adrian and Adriana simultaneously. The man, trapped by fear and secrecy, and the woman, defiant, alive, unyielding. Then the stranger spoke. A single sentence that made my blood run cold. "So, this is what you've been hiding." The words shattered the fragile calm I had been clinging to. Every muscle tensed, every heartbeat screamed. The room seemed to spin, the walls closing in, the air thick with tension. Isabella's eyes were wide, her lips parted in a mixture of shock and disbelief. And I, caught between two identities, realized with chilling clarity, the night had reached its breaking point. Every choice I had made, every secret I had guarded, every transformation I had embraced, all of it had led to this moment. The thrill, the danger, the beauty of becoming Adriana, it was now intertwined with exposure, judgment, and irreversible consequences. I could feel the dress against my skin, the lace at my wrists brushing lightly. The heels pressed into my arches, reminding me of the vulnerability and power in every step. My wig felt heavier than ever, a crown of risk atop my head. The reflection in the mirror stared back, and I knew Adriana could no longer hide. Adrian could no longer retreat. The collision of worlds was unavoidable. And in that moment, every instinct, every heartbeat, every ounce of courage surged forward. I had to face the truth, face Isabella, face the stranger, and face myself. The night was no longer about secrecy. It was about survival, identity, and revelation. Every second that passed brought the world closer to unraveling, and I realized with a mix of fear and exhilaration, nothing would ever be the same again. The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. So, this is what you've been hiding. My chest tightened, every muscle tensing involuntarily. My mind raced. How had they discovered me? How much did they see? And most importantly, what would they do now? Isabella's eyes were fixed on me, wide, uncertain. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I could feel my pulse in my temples, each beat louder than the last, echoing through my body like a warning. I tried to speak, to form words that could bridge the chasm of secrecy, but my throat felt constricted. The words caught midair. I can explain. I finally managed, voice quivering. The quiver betrayed the calm I had tried to project, revealing every ounce of fear, every layer of vulnerability that I had tried to conceal beneath the persona of Adriana. The stranger stepped closer, deliberate and unflinching. Their gaze swept over me, appraising, assessing, and it was worse than anything I had imagined. It wasn't just recognition, it was judgment, quiet but potent, the kind that cuts deeper than words. I could feel the weight of exposure pressing down, crushing, relentless. Isabella tilted her head, a mix of curiosity and incredulity in her expression. Adriana, is that you? Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it with a teasing undertone. My stomach twisted. The line between playfulness and seriousness was gone. The stakes had become deadly serious. I swallowed, trying to steady my racing heart. Every fiber of me screamed to retreat, to shed the persona and hide behind Adrian, but that wasn't an option anymore. Not now. The moment of reckoning had arrived. I didn't mean for anyone to see, I confessed, voice low, almost a whisper. It started as an escape, a way to explore myself. The words felt liberating and terrifying at the same time. I had exposed a truth I had guarded for months, and it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. The stranger's eyes narrowed. Months, huh? They said, their tone icy measured. And all this time, you thought no one would notice? Panic surged through me. Every instinct screamed that I had underestimated the consequences, that my secret was no longer mine to control. Isabella moved slightly closer, her fingers brushing against the hem of my dress, tentative, testing the line between curiosity and support. My body reacted instinctively, shivering, yet drawn to the touch. The thrill of being seen, the danger of exposure, coursed through me like wildfire. I didn't know how to tell anyone. I admitted. I thought I could handle it on my own, keep it contained. My hands trembled, brushing against the fabric, the wig, the subtle accessories that had become extensions of myself. Each detail of transformation now carried weight beyond beauty. It was armor, it was vulnerability, it was a risk. The stranger's expression softened slightly, but the intensity didn't fade. "You've been living a lie," they said quietly, almost to themselves. "And now it's real." The words hit me like a punch. They weren't angry, not yet, but the weight of inevitability pressed down harder than any anger could. Isabella's voice broke through, gentle but firm. Adriana, I don't understand everything, but I see you. And right now, that's what matters." Her gaze met mine, steady, unwavering. The combination of her acknowledgement and the stranger's scrutiny sent my emotions spiraling. Fear, relief, exhilaration, vulnerability, and desire all collided within me. I took a shaky breath, trying to regain control. "I don't know what to do," I confessed. I've never been caught like this before." The truth spilled out, raw and unfiltered. It was terrifying, yet liberating. The adrenaline surged, sharpening my senses, making every heartbeat feel like a countdown. The stranger finally spoke again, their tone measured but carrying a weight that made me freeze. "You need to decide who you are. Not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. Secrets only last so long." The words resonated deep within me, cutting through fear and hesitation. I realized in that moment that the persona of Adriana wasn't just a disguise, it was a part of me. The thrill, the vulnerability, the beauty, the danger, they were all intertwined with who I truly was. And now, exposed, I had no choice but to confront it fully. Isabella reached out, taking my hand, her touch grounding me. "Whatever happens next," she said softly, "we face it together." Her reassurance was a lifeline, yet it didn't erase the tension. The stranger remained, eyes sharp, waiting, and I knew that my secret world had been irrevocably disrupted. Every fiber of me quivered, a mixture of fear and excitement. The heels, the dress, the wig, the makeup, all of it was now inseparable from the truth. My dual existence, my secret identity, had collided with reality, and the fallout would change everything. And yet, despite the terror, despite the exposure, a surge of exhilaration coursed through me. I was alive, defiant, and undeniable. I was standing on the edge, and there was no turning back. The stranger's eyes bore into me, unflinching and cold. Every instinct screamed to retreat, but retreat was no longer an option. My body was taut, like a wire stretched to its breaking point. The heels dug into my feet. The dress clung like a second skin. The wig felt heavier than ever, but all of that faded against the rising storm of fear and adrenaline. "Do you realize what you've been risking?" the stranger demanded, voice low, precise, threatening. Their words sliced through the fragile barrier I had maintained for months. Each syllable chipped away at my confidence. Each glance threatened to expose what I had spent so long concealing. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling. I didn't think anyone would notice. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I admitted, voice quivering but firm. Every word was a confession, a strip of vulnerability laid bare. The persona of Adriana and the hidden self of Adrian were bleeding into one another, raw and exposed. Isabella stepped closer, her fingers brushing against mine in an almost imperceptible act of solidarity. "We all have secrets," she said softly, though her eyes never left the stranger. "But that doesn't make them wrong." Her presence was grounding, yet it also reminded me how precarious this moment truly was. One misstep could unravel everything. The stranger's gaze shifted between Isabella and me, sharp, calculating. "Secrets can be dangerous," they said finally, a thin edge of menace in their voice. "Especially when they involve this." Their eyes flicked toward me, taking in the entirety of the transformation, the wig, the makeup, the heels, the dress. My heart lurched. Exposure wasn't abstract anymore. It was tangible, immediate, and terrifying. I felt my knees weaken. Adriana had been my refuge, my freedom, my self-expression, but now she was on trial. The exhilaration of transformation clashed violently with the panic of discovery. My pulse hammered, my breath came in short, sharp bursts, and my hands shook uncontrollably. Every detail, the lace at my wrists, the sway of the skirt, the subtle shimmer of my makeup, felt both like armor and a trap. You've been living a lie, the stranger continued, tone sharpening. And lying to the people around you. How long before it destroyed everything? The words weren't just a threat, they were a challenge, a gauntlet thrown at the heart of my identity. I wanted to lash out, to defend myself, but the words stuck in my throat. Isabella's hand tightened around mine. Enough, she said firmly. Let him speak. But you don't have to answer alone. Her voice was steady, unwavering, and for a brief moment, it steadied my frayed nerves. I took a shaky breath, trying to regain composure. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, I whispered. Adriana, she's a part of me. I needed to understand myself before I could explain it. The confession spilled out, raw and unfiltered. It was terrifying, yet liberating. The stranger's eyes narrowed. Understanding yourself by deceiving everyone else. Their words stung, but they also carried an odd undertone of curiosity. Interesting choice. Their gaze lingered on me, scanning, assessing, and I realized that my secret life was no longer safe. It had become personal. A sudden movement, Isabella stepping closer, shattered the fragile tension. Enough, she said again, voice sharp. You don't get to judge him. Or her. Or whatever you think this is. We decide what's okay, not you. Her defiance surprised me, but it also gave me a spark of courage I hadn't felt before. The stranger's lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. Very well, they said, voice smooth, almost conversational. But the truth has consequences. And tonight, you'll see just how far those consequences reach. My breath caught. The weight of inevitability pressed down harder than ever. Every heartbeat, every glance, every movement felt amplified, electric with danger. The night had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Adriana's world, my world, the fragile boundary I had maintained between them, was collapsing. I could feel the dress against my skin, the wig brushing my cheeks, the heels anchoring me like a lifeline. I was terrified, exposed, but also alive in a way I had never been. Fear and exhilaration merged into a single, overwhelming sensation. I was standing at the edge of discovery, identity, and revelation, and I had no choice but to step forward. Whatever happens, Isabella whispered, her fingers brushing mine again, grounding me, we face it together. The words were simple, but they carried a weight I would never forget. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Adriana was no longer just a secret. She was reality, and the stakes had never been higher. The stranger took a step closer, and I realized with chilling clarity, the night would change everything. There was no going back. My secret, my transformation, my identity, they would be exposed, tested, and redefined. And in that moment, standing on the precipice of revelation, I understood something profound. The risk, the fear, the vulnerability, it was all worth it. Because Adriana was real, and nothing could erase her. The stranger's presence was suffocating, like a storm hovering just above my head, ready to crash. Every nerve in my body screamed that the delicate balance I had maintained for months was about to shatter. My heels dug sharply into the floor, the dress hugged every curve, and the wig felt impossibly heavy, but none of it mattered anymore. The danger wasn't in my appearance. It was in the truth, raw, exposed, unavoidable. You don't understand, I whispered, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay composed. This is who I am. Adriana isn't just a disguise. She's me, part of me, and I need her. The words poured out, unfiltered, raw, desperate. I had never said them aloud before. Never fully. And yet, here they were, spilling into the charged air like a confession that could change everything. The stranger tilted their head, eyes narrowing, assessing every reaction. Needing her or hiding behind her? Their voice was calm, almost clinical, but every syllable carried the weight of threat. I felt my stomach twist. Every instinct screamed to defend, to retreat, but retreat was impossible. Isabella stepped forward, her hand gripping mine tightly. "Enough," she said, voice firm, unwavering. "You don't get to decide what's valid or not."
She.
Adriana exists. That's the reality. You're not going to intimidate us into erasing her. Her words grounded me, filled me with a courage I hadn't known I possessed. For the first time, I felt that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone in this. The stranger's expression flickered. Curiosity, frustration, calculation. "Very well," they said slowly. "But the consequences remain. Tonight, you'll understand them fully." Each word struck like a hammer. I realized then that the events of the night weren't random. They were deliberate, a test, a reckoning. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself, but the tension coiled in my chest, tightening with every second. Every glance between Isabella, the stranger, and me carried weight, significance, danger. I felt the duality of Adrian and Adriana pressing in on me, two selves forced into the same space, the same heartbeat, the same fear. Then came the unexpected. A sudden movement from the stranger, a hand reaching toward me, but not in threat. Instead, it gently lifted a stray lock of hair from my face, brushing the wig aside. My body froze, heart hammering. The intimacy of the gesture was jarring, shocking, confusing. Fear and exhilaration collided in a way I hadn't anticipated. "You've been living a lie," the stranger said softly, voice almost tender now. "But maybe not all lies are destructive. Some reveal truths that are too long buried." The words struck me deeper than any accusation could. I realized, with a jolt, that the night wasn't just about exposure or judgment. It was about confrontation, understanding, revelation. Isabella's gaze met mine, steady, unwavering. "Do you see?" she whispered. "This isn't punishment. It's recognition. You're not alone. Adriana is real, and she's not going anywhere." My chest tightened, a mixture of relief, fear, and exhilaration surging through me. I could feel the persona of Adriana solidifying, no longer fragile, no longer hidden, alive in every inch of my being. The stranger stepped back slightly, giving me space, but their eyes never left mine. "Tonight," they said finally, "you'll face what you've been avoiding. Not just who you are, but how the world sees you. Every choice has consequences. And now they're here." The words reverberated in my chest. Every secret, every carefully nurtured moment of transformation, every hour spent balancing Adrian and Adriana, everything was about to collide. The tension in the room was electric, almost unbearable, yet there was a strange clarity in the chaos. I realized that fear had been a veil, and now, stripped bare, I could see myself fully. Adriana, alive, vibrant, defiant. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing heart. "I'm ready," I whispered, voice shaking but firm. I accept who I am, and I won't hide anymore." The words were both a surrender and a declaration, a simultaneous act of vulnerability and strength. Isabella's hand tightened around mine, a quiet affirmation, a tether grounding me in the chaos. The stranger nodded slightly, a subtle acknowledgement of a shift. The night had escalated beyond threat or tension. It had become a crucible, forging the truth from fear, identity, and revelation. And in that moment, I understood something profound. The danger, the exposure, the panic, it had all been necessary. Adriana had to emerge fully, without hesitation, without apology, and without fear. The transformation was complete, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, irreversibly. The stranger's gaze softened, no longer threatening, but sharp, incisive, aware. "The real test begins now," they said quietly. "Not in hiding, not in fear, but in living truthfully, despite the consequences." I felt every muscle in my body tense, every nerve alight with adrenaline. Fear and exhilaration collided, and I realized that the night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The confrontation had reached its peak, but the fallout, the repercussions, and the emotional reckoning were still ahead. Adriana wasn't just surviving anymore. She was awake, alive, and unstoppable. The room was electric, every second stretched taut with tension. My pulse thundered in my ears, my hands shook, and my mind raced through every possible outcome. Adriana stood fully formed, not a disguise, not a fleeting indulgence, but alive, real, undeniable. And yet, the danger wasn't over. The stranger's gaze was sharp, assessing, weighing my every move, while Isabella's presence grounded me, but also reminded me how exposed I was. "You think you're ready," the stranger said, voice low, deliberate, almost a whisper, "but no one can survive this without facing the consequences." Their eyes flicked to Isabella, then back to me, and I felt the crushing weight of inevitability. Every secret, every act of concealment, every hour of careful transformation had brought me here, to a moment where nothing could be hidden. I swallowed hard. I'm not hiding anymore," I said, voice trembling but determined. "I accept who I am. Adriana, she's me. And I won't apologize for it." The words felt like fire in my chest, burning away doubt, fear, hesitation. Yet as soon as they left my lips, I realized how fragile the moment truly was. The stranger stepped closer, slowly, each movement deliberate. My heartbeat accelerated. "Acceptance is one thing," they said, voice sharp now, "but survival is another. You've exposed yourself, and now you'll face the fallout." My stomach twisted. Fallout. Consequences. Exposure. Everything I had feared was imminent. Isabella squeezed my hand, her eyes meeting mine. "Whatever happens, we face it together," she said softly. Her presence was a lifeline, yet it couldn't erase the panic twisting inside me. Every step I took, every twitch of expression, every glance was under scrutiny. I was exposed, vulnerable, and on the edge of something irreversible. Then, suddenly, the stranger's hand shot forward, not in aggression but in a swift motion that snatched a small, familiar object from my side. My breath caught. It was the compact mirror I had always carried, a symbol of Adriana, of my secret life, of the transformation I had guarded so carefully. "You thought this was just a game," the stranger said, holding the mirror aloft. "But this reveals everything. Your duality, your secrecy, your truth. And now, the world can see it too." My knees nearly buckled. The mirror had been a talisman, a private confirmation of who I was. Now it was in someone else's hands, a weapon of revelation, a threat I hadn't anticipated. My pulse hammered, and for the first time, fear and exhilaration collided in a way that made me gasp. Isabella's voice cut through the tension. "Give it back," she said firmly, eyes blazing. She, Adriana, has a right to that privacy." The stranger's expression flickered. Amusement, surprise, calculation, but the mirror didn't move. It hovered between us like a pendulum, swinging between exposure and protection. I stepped forward, trembling but resolute. "It's mine," I said, voice stronger than I expected. "I've earned the right to be seen, to exist, to choose who knows and who doesn't." My hands reached toward the mirror, heart racing, every nerve alive. The stranger paused, weighing me, testing my resolve. And then the twist. Isabella gasped, a sound sharp, unexpected. The stranger's grip tightened, revealing the mirror not as a simple object but as a device, hidden camera, recording everything. My blood ran cold. Every moment of vulnerability, every gesture, every expression had been captured, cataloged, exposed. The reality hit like ice. My secret life, my dual identity, my transformation, was now in someone else's control. I staggered back, panic clawing at my chest. No, this can't be happening," I whispered, voice breaking. My hands flew to my face, tracing the contours, the makeup, the wig, as if grounding myself could somehow erase the threat. The stranger's eyes glinted. "Now you see," they said softly, almost gently, "the stakes were never just personal. They were public. And the question isn't whether you can survive, it's whether you can thrive when the world sees you as you truly are. Isabella pressed closer, her presence both protective and challenging.
We'll face it, she said again.
Together. But even her reassurance couldn't mask the gravity of the situation. Every secret, every confession, every transformation, everything hung on a razor's edge. I took a deep breath, trembling, eyes flicking between Isabella, the stranger, and the mirror. Adriana was alive. My identity was undeniable. And yet, the threat loomed larger than ever. Exposure wasn't hypothetical anymore, it was imminent. Every decision, every step, every heartbeat would determine what came next. And in that suspended, terrifying moment, I realized the night wasn't over. It would never be over. Secrets, revelations, and identity had collided, and the fallout was only beginning. My transformation had led me here, but survival, acceptance, and truth were still battles to fight. I clenched my fists, drawing in shaky breaths. Adriana was real. She was alive. And whatever came next, I would face it, fully, without hiding. The stranger stepped back, leaving the mirror suspended in the tense space between us. Tonight, they said quietly, everything changes. And you will see just how far truth can reach. And with that, the room was charged with a tension so complete, so unrelenting, that I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The mirror hovered between us, gleaming under the faint light, a silent witness to everything. My reflection stared back, Adriana, exposed, trembling, yet defiant. The adrenaline coursing through me made every heartbeat feel like a drum, every breath sharp, every nerve alive. I knew, in that moment, that nothing would ever be the same. Isabella's hand remained tight around mine, grounding me, anchoring me to a thread of stability amid the chaos. We'll figure this out, she whispered, voice steady despite the tension in the room. Together. Her reassurance felt like a lifeline, yet the gravity of the situation pressed down relentlessly. The stranger's expression softened just slightly, but their eyes remained sharp, calculating. Tonight, they said quietly, was only the beginning. You've revealed yourself, but now the world, or at least someone, is watching. Every choice you make, every movement, will be scrutinized. And there's no going back. My stomach churned. Exposure. Judgment. Public scrutiny. The thought of it made my hands shake, yet a strange thrill surged through me. I realized that the fear, the danger, and the vulnerability were inseparable from the exhilaration, the beauty, and the power of being Adriana. Every ounce of me screamed. This was reality, raw and unfiltered, and there was no hiding. I glanced at Isabella, searching for reassurance. Her eyes met mine, unwavering. No matter what happens, she said softly, you're not alone. I see you. I accept you. And that's what matters. Her words struck deep, filling me with both courage and dread. Courage because I finally felt acknowledged. Dread because the threat was undeniable, looming, unstoppable. The stranger's fingers tightened on the mirror. I've seen enough to know the truth, they said, voice low, almost reverent. But seeing isn't enough. Others will see too. And when they do, will you be ready? The question lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating, like a shadow stretching across the room. I swallowed hard, trembling. I'll face it, I whispered. My voice shook, but there was determination beneath the fear. Adriana wasn't going to retreat. She wouldn't hide. And yet, the uncertainty clawed at me. Could I survive exposure? Could I endure judgment? Could I maintain the balance between Adrian and Adriana when the world might refuse to accept either? The stranger's lips curved faintly, almost a smirk, and they stepped back. Good. You'll need that courage, they said, voice sharp again. Because once the footage goes public, there's no undoing it. No retreat. No safety net. And someone will use it against you. The question is, will you survive? My chest tightened. The mirror's reflection glimmered, catching the light in a way that made Adriana's eyes seem impossibly real, impossibly alive. I could feel the weight of inevitability pressing down, the thrill of revelation mixing with the terror of exposure. Every secret, every hidden moment, every carefully guarded transformation was now on the line. Isabella stepped closer, pressing her forehead against mine briefly. "You're not alone," she whispered again. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together. But you need to be ready." Her words were both comforting and sobering. I realized that courage alone wouldn't be enough. I had to make choices, anticipate consequences, and embrace the full reality of being Adriana in a world that might not forgive or understand. The stranger turned toward the door, leaving the mirror suspended in the tense air. "Remember this moment," they said quietly. "The next time you look into a reflection, the world will be watching." And with that, they disappeared, leaving a silence so complete it felt deafening. I sank to the floor, heels clicking softly, my body trembling. The mirror sat before me, a symbol of exposure, vulnerability, and transformation. Adriana's eyes met mine in reflection, fierce and defiant, and I realized, no matter what happened next, I couldn't go back. I wouldn't. The secret was out, the persona alive, the stakes higher than ever. Isabella crouched beside me, wrapping her arms around my shoulders. "We'll handle it," she murmured. "But you have to promise, no more hiding. Not from me, not from anyone." Her gaze was steady, unyielding. I nodded, swallowing hard, trying to steady my shaking hands. And then another sound. Faint, deliberate, unmistakable. Footsteps approaching. Someone was coming. My heart skipped a beat. The mirror, the stranger, the exposure, the threat. It was all converging, and I realized, with a jolt of icy terror, that the moment of ultimate revelation had arrived. Someone else was about to see everything. Everything I had tried to hide, everything I had transformed into, everything that made Adriana alive. It was all about to be exposed. I glanced at Isabella. She squeezed my hand, her expression fierce and protective. "Whatever happens," she said again, voice low, almost a whisper, "we face it together." But even her reassurance couldn't mask the truth. The world outside that door would no longer see Adrian. It would see Adriana, and there was no turning back. I rose slowly, trembling but resolute. The heels felt like anchors and swords at the same time, the dress a shield and a weapon. My wig was perfectly in place now, the makeup flawless. Adriana was ready. No, not ready, but alive, real, unyielding. The footsteps stopped. The doorknob rattled slightly. My pulse thundered, my breath caught, and I knew the next moment would define everything. And then, silence.